morning everybody, how are you doing? Hope you're well on this Monday morning and had a nice weekend. So today I am going to talk a little bit about fear. So fear is something that we all have, and to do with different things, but we all have fear in some respect, or nervousness. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it today because so many people get really blocked by fear, and it really stops us from doing the things that we want to do and from achieving the things we want to achieve. And actually, it's so important to remember that most fears are actually learned behaviours. Now, you might argue with that and you might be like, oh no, I've always been afraid of spiders, I've always been afraid of public speaking, and we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But actually, most fears are learned behaviours, and that's a really good thing to remember, because if you can learn something, then you can unlearn something and use that to move forward. So way back in the 60s, and obviously since then, they did loads of experiments with babies, and they actually discovered that babies are only actually afraid of two things. Now those two things are, babies are afraid of falling, and they are afraid of loud noises. So when a baby, I think they did an experiment where they put them like on perspex, and when they were getting close to the edge, then they became afraid. So they have that innate sense of danger when danger's about to happen. And the same goes for noises. So when a baby hears loud noises, it could be danger approaching, and it evokes what they call an acoustic startle response, which again is to do with danger being close by, and generally it'll evoke them starting crying and all that sort of stuff. So they did all these experiments, and that's what they came up with, that babies are actually only afraid of those two things, so loud noises, and they're afraid of falling. Now, if you think about that, that's really crazy, right? So it means that everything else that you're afraid of, then actually that's kind of learned behaviour. So, common ones that people are afraid of, I'm afraid of spiders or creepy crawlies, or I'm afraid of public speaking, or I'm afraid of going and asking someone out for a date, I'm afraid of failing is another big one. So all these fears, and actually when we peel back the layers, and there'll be a lot of layers in it, but if you take the ones of like fear of failing, fear of public speaking, fear of asking someone on a date, or anything along those lines, then actually generally when you peel back all the layers, it basically boils down to the fact that, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough to go and ask somebody on a date? Am I going to be on their level? Am I good enough to go and do some public speaking? Will people like what I say, or will they tune in and be responsive? So, and again, it boils down to fear of failure is the same. Am I good enough? Am I going to be putting out content that people want to listen to? So all those triggers, so fear of being good enough, or worrying about being good enough, they're again all learned behaviours. You're not born with that. So generally that means that something's happened early on in your life that's made you question it, and you've taken on that belief or that nervousness, and you've carried that from that point in time. So another good psychology fact to know, I guess, is that, until the age of about 7, you are a sponge. So as a child, you're a sponge. You haven't really got the mental capacity to know whether someone's talking a load of rubbish to you or not. You just kind of soak everything up. So if someone tells you, generally before the age of 7, that you're not good enough, or, that, you'll never amount to anything, or whatever it might be, you just take that on and you don't really question it. As you get a bit older and you get a bit more into the fact that not everyone speaks absolute truth, and you kind of get your own brain and you can decide whether you're going to take that on or not, then you start to question things. But actually, a lot of those things that you took on before the age of 7 will carry on with you, and until you deal with it really, or until you consciously decide that actually that belief doesn't serve me anymore and I'm going to move past it. So it's really, really good to take stock of, the things that you think about, and the beliefs that you have about anything, and really, really challenge it. And I do that with my clients, and we go to quite a deep level on that, because, it's the same for all of us, and I've done it myself. You know, I've had my coaches, and even though I know all this stuff and I teach this stuff, sometimes you need that outside person to really challenge you on your own beliefs, because they see things in you that you perhaps don't always see yourself. Or there's definitely been aha moments for me where I've been like, oh yeah, why am I still saying that? I didn't even realise. So, you know, sometimes you do need that outside help, even if you're a good coach yourself, or, you know, do whatever you do. So it's a really good exercise to, if you've got things that are holding you back and you know you've got beliefs that are holding you back, really go back, and you can just do this by taking a deep breath, closing your eyes, relaxing, and just, you know, think, where did that first come up? Where did I first think that I wasn't good enough? And, you know, you might think, oh, I can't think of anything. But just, if you can't think of anything, actually just try and imagine. Because even if you just imagine and you think you're making it up in your head, your subconscious will make links to a particular time it happened. You know, maybe your mum was shouting at you or whatever, and you didn't feel good enough, and you just, for some reason, took that on into your subconscious as a truth. And actually now, when you think about public speaking, or you're thinking about doing what you want to do that will take you forward, and you're nervous and you're scared about doing it, it's holding you back. So it's really time to let go of it. So that's going to be my thought for the next couple of days, is that I challenge you to really think about your fears. And if it's not a fear of noises and it's not a fear of falling, then really dive into where that fear has come from, because you weren't born with it. So, you know, it's got to come from somewhere. The other one to think about, so we've just talked about the ones like failing, public speaking, whatever, which is more of an emotional thing, which generally goes back to I'm not good enough. Things like creepy crawlies is not really about not being good enough, but that'll be learned behaviours. So you'll have seen somebody that's scared of creepy crawlies, maybe you've watched it on TV, maybe your mum's really, or your dad's really scared of spiders, whatever it is, and you've taken on that belief as well, that maybe you saw them as a child jumping on the sofa when there's a spider there. So in your head, you're like, oh my God, that must be dangerous, that must be whatever. So again, if you're afraid of like creatures, animals, which again is slightly different underlying thing to public speaking or whatever, but again, that is a learned behaviour. So who did you learn that behaviour off? If you're scared of spiders, or snakes is another popular one, or even people are scared of dogs or cats or whatever, where did that come from? And it might be you got bitten as a child. It might be, you know, like you say, that you've seen it on TV and unconsciously you've just made that association in your head so you don't go near it. You know, water, some people are afraid of water. So really challenge yourself this week. Think about your fears, and then really think about why you're afraid, or do that exercise, close your eyes and think about what first set that fear off. Because once you know what set it off, and like I say, even if you imagine it, that's okay. Then you can start working to release that fear and move on and achieve what you really want to achieve. So I will leave that with you. Have a think, let me know how you get on, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers.